Hello and welcome back to the Fat Cat Scraps Fight Podcast. I'm just gonna be chilling here, going over the some of the boxing and UFC news of recent. So we essentially start off this past weekend. Bam Rodriguez got back into action, which was very good to see. I actually got the chance to see Bam live before, which was pretty cool. He's just an elite fighter at that lighter weight, very explosive. I really don't see anyone in his way, at least at his current weight. Be interesting, 130. You got some guys who might be able to give him a tough fight. But honestly, he just seems to be running through that division. So, pop pop bam, as they say, I guess. And then just a quick mention of the UFC card this weekend. I'm not necessarily going into like the undercard, so to speak. But Max was able to secure the win. A nice send off for Dustin. He's done a lot of great things for the sport. I think he's a very easy guy to root for. Happy to see him get a little send off. Not sure the UFC does, or with the way fighters' careers pan out, and how fights and damage and things like that go. I mean, you see that with Josh Taylor's retirement. May he enjoy his retirement. He did a lot for boxing over that way. But yeah, good to see Max pick up a win, maybe kind of steer himself in a better direction than, his previous fight had suggested. Going up against a guy who really is the top guy, so to speak. But yeah, I'm not really going to comment too much on the UFC. I didn't look into it too detailed. I actually kind of fell asleep while watching the fight, unfortunately. But yeah, we just going down the line, thinking about the boxing was a great weekend this weekend for boxing. I even think a lot of the undercards, from what I could tell, turned out to be pretty good. I wasn't as invested, but I saw some people online complaining about the quality of those cards. And they're not going to be necessarily Ring Magazine, Riyadh season type undercards, but still definitely bringing it. You can see it with the pressers, all the weigh-ins, things like that leading up to it, and even the controversy afterwards with Dubois. Some footage that got released from earlier that day, suggesting certain things about his maybe his preparation, his seriousness. So that's created some good back and forth online. I just think that only creates more talk around his name and things like that moving forward. But yeah, I think looking at the undercard, I was on just listening to G-Man's commentary, and it seemed like was it Akoli fighting Lorena, I want to say. Didn't seem to be the best performance for him, especially moving up in weight, significantly heavier. He ends up getting the win, but definitely nothing necessarily impressive that convinces me that he would be able to give any of these top heavyweights a shot, let alone top 10 fringe guys. But then you essentially move into the main event, where USYK just outclassed Dubois. Just kind of really showed his greatness, just quickness, speed. Dubois comes with heat. He packs a big punch. He's a massive guy, big ball dong of his, and Usyk just made it look easy within 5 rounds. I was not expecting it to necessarily end that way that quickly, but he just showed his dominance, and it seemed like after the fight, he still wants to take on more guys in the division. Which is interesting. You think at this point maybe you can hang it up, but if you're really trying to earn more money and just really, not necessarily cement your legacy, because I believe his is already cemented, but just continuously, hammer in the point that I'm very feel, but also that he's just by far the best, and it's not really close. That's why I don't necessarily like a guy like an Akoli kind of trying to make this. I don't think it's making the move because of Usyk, you know what I mean? It's perfectly, independent of their, their own careers and things like that. But then when I hear, their names tossed in the same sentence in terms of a move up to heavyweight, not that I think it's disrespectful to Usyk, because I think they're doing their own things. Um, but when talking about a guy like a Coley moving from cruiser to heavy, I don't think it should. Their trajectories are not certainly going to be the same because I'm not 200% sure if Coley's a guy who's going to compete at that world level at heavyweight. So yeah, he just put on a dominating performance. I don't really know where Dubois goes from here. I think luckily for him, there's a lot of names in the heavyweight division. A lot of the names in that UK scene that he could potentially opt for. Um, and I'm just curious. I like even the old guard of the heavyweight division. The Dillian Whites of the world. Hopefully Joshua doesn't fight Jake Paul, but we'll see. But those guys still entertain me, kind of like before when I started getting into the real boxing, especially the names of, like a Dillian White or uh, I'm blanking right now, but all those the Ruizes of the world, all those guys who really were getting it on in like the late 2010s. Um, so yeah, that division's still going to be exciting. Could argue that Usyk just is showing his levels kind of above everyone else. But it's competition for next man up. Um, but yeah, so we had that Pacquiao card as well. My guy Tim Tszyu lost, unfortunately, against Fundora. I'm seeing different things online. People saying his like career's possibly been mismanaged and things like that. But I've trusted that he's always had like a decent team around him, and he's just taking big risks. The initial Fundora fight, coming back, fighting a guy like Joey Spencer, challenging himself against Fundora again, despite all that Fundora's shown to be great. So I don't think that's necessarily against Tim Tszyu. I mean, he's got some miles on the clock. He's taken some damage, um, but I think who knows what he has left in him. There's maybe some fights. I've heard even people saying that like Thurman would be too big of a step up for him at this rate. But I still think that's a good fight. I think that's a fight that he definitely can present some challenges with. I heard also talking about him moving up in weight as well. But we'll see. And then the main event, man, Manny Pacquiao just put on a crazy performance. I mean, you can say Barrios bring it, did he not? But I mean, for a 46-year-old man, that's pretty remarkable. Um, and I think it does show some things about the sport. I think we're getting in this era of the celebrity boxing, the influencer boxing, which I do enjoy watching, and I can respect it for what it is. Um, but when you have these older guys kind of having exhibitions and things like that, I don't, when I think of the great example of like an older boxer, I think of even like the Klitschko's who are their early 40s, mainly the one, but they're obviously both very successful for being brothers in the sport. I think of George Foreman, in his late 40s, still competing at the highest of levels. And here's Manny Pacquiao, world title. Whether or not you think Barrios was the easiest or, the most game world title challenger he could have fought with or world champ. Um, he certainly brought it. And I think it's remarkable, and I think it's something we shouldn't take for granted. He displayed an incredible amount of greatness throughout his, first part of his career, if you want to call it that. So to see him come back like this and potentially line up a rematch, I think is really intriguing. Can only just challenge and push the limits of what he's capable of. As a guy like Barrios is going to certainly come back better that second fight if there were to be a rematch. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the boxing this weekend. I was trying to see what we have coming up soon. I know Canelo Crawford is that second week of September, but I know we definitely have some things in store for August, which I'll probably have brief videos and content just sharing my thoughts on. This video is a bit more on the whim, trying to understand that it is better for me to do maybe a little research, film study, things like that, so I know that I'm more prepared, but at the same time to know that if I have it free flowing, I'm not referencing notes. It can be for a better discussion. So if anyone's watching this and wants to give thoughts and opinions in the comments, that would be great. I just would love to use this as a source to maybe meet and talk with people online about boxing and just influence conversations even in comments and things like that. So it's definitely more than welcome. But I'm just gonna try to keep posting on here and just keep at it, really. So yes, this has been the Fat Cat Scraps Fight Podcast, and I will see you next week. Peace.